My name is Dr. Glenn Smith, and by vocation and training, I'm an urban missiologist. For 35 years, I was the executive director of Christian Direction, which is a multifaceted urban ministry which partners with congregations and with social service agencies, working together with adolescents, their families, and their neighborhoods for the peace and well-being of urban communities here in Quebec and across the French-speaking world. When I turned over the leadership of that organization to younger leadership, I transitioned into two roles. At the present time, I'm the director of a graduate program in French in practical theology. But with my wife, Sandy, we pastor missional communities at our church here in the city. And it's in that capacity that I want to talk to you today about congregational life in the secularity of Quebec. Now, let me begin for just a moment about secularity and the context in which congregations live in this city today. Now, when I use the word secularity, we're not talking about secularism, neither secularization. This city, like your community, is not getting less religious. No, I'm talking about secularity, which is the conditions of belief. You see, 385 years ago, when the European colonization of this community began, it was impossible not to believe in God and in Jesus Christ. But today, the whole framework has fundamentally changed. And today, we live in a city where hyper-individuality, where the autonomous self lives and reigns alive. If I can put it this way, today it's impossible, publicly speaking, to believe. And so the results in those conditions of belief over these 385 years has given birth to hyper-individuality, secularity, laicity, which is the public way, the public policy in which managing church-state relationships takes place, galloping pluralities, extremism, all of those put an extensive and an intensive pressure on how churches thrive and grow in this area. But La Chapelle is celebrating its 10th anniversary this year. It was founded in 2013. And because Montreal is a university city and a primary research city, in fact, we have a higher percentage of university students in this city than in any other community in North America. And we've benefited from graduate students and researchers and professors who have done primary research on our church. And I want to tell you about some of the things that we've learned about ourselves and about how we are the church with the city. Now, our congregation is in 4 locations. We have 6 services, and we have a robust presence online. It's a young church. The average age of our congregation is about 33 years of age. So therefore, I'm not a typical practitioner and parishioner in that church. The church's mission reads this way: La Chapelle exists so that those who are far from God are transformed as disciples who in turn make more disciples. And our trademark, our tagline is being a church for those who don't go. So what takes place such that this congregation in the secularity of the city is thriving, is flourishing? I think the first thing that always comes out is that this is a congregation that takes the arts seriously, that loves the arts. Every Sunday, every special event is marked by the expertise and the practice of the artists that are part of us. Not just the classical singing, but dance, the graphic arts, videos. Everything has the real touch of creativity to it. That really resonates in a city which is known for a very robust arts community. But second of all, this is a congregation that takes volunteering seriously. You only need to show up at our church once, and the Welcome Center will find a place for you to serve. And our church has an association with an organization called J'aime Montréal, I Love the City, which prioritizes volunteer service with other organizations. So volunteering is a key part of how this church positions itself in the city. But this is also a church that takes preaching seriously. In spite of it being a young congregation, every Sunday will include preaching for 40 to 45 minutes. So we train people on how to do public proclamation. There's lots of practice and there's lots of feedback. But this is a church that also takes discipleship very seriously, spiritual formation. You see, in our missional communities, we work on a triangle that includes three things. First of all, a small group, anywhere from 8 to 12 people that meets every week, and they take life in the Spirit very seriously, sharing together, praying together, eating together, being together. In these small groups, they engage the Scriptures. Studying the Bible inductively is an integral part of who we are and what we do. But then third, these small groups, these missional communities, they love and show the Word of God, their following of Jesus in word and deed in their neighborhoods. And so right now, 2023, we have 103 missional communities. We have an average attendance of about 850 people every week in our small groups. But it's in that small group where the discipleship and the multiplication takes place. Now, there's some things that we do well, but obviously there's challenges because of the secularity of the city. For example, because of the hyper-individuality of Montreal, how do you help people to understand community? How do you take community seriously? That's an ongoing dialogue that we have to keep. Yes, we're a welcoming church, but how do you develop a culture of hospitality? Not just welcoming people, but actually inviting the other to be a part of life and of friendship. Certainly the laicity of the culture, the laicity of the state, means living one's life and one's faith publicly is a real challenge. There's always a pressure on to live a private faith and to put a muzzle on people so that they don't talk about their faith. In other words, faith gets deeply prioritized. But that's not New Testament faith. That's not what it means to follow Jesus. Now, also, like churches across Montreal, the severity of the COVID pandemic and the large number of people who died from the pandemic in the city has put stress on people's lives. It's put stress on people's faith. It's put stress on people's relationships. And that would be true of our church as in any church. But with all the good news and the challenges, I'm often reminded about what St. Augustine said. St. Augustine said that hope is the future tense of faith. And so there are challenges to live one's faith in the secularity of the culture. This is one example of what God is doing through a community of faith. The challenges are there, that's for sure. But hope, it goes deep. And so it is possible to have a thriving congregation in the secularity of the city.